Good. So the recording is started. Good morning, everyone. I have a slight problem today. And the problem is that the topic that we are continuing with this Bet Midrash is the question of Avelut and Shiv'ah. We're going to talk about death. It's not by coincidence that we do it today. It's because just yesterday we learned the Parashat Vayechi, and he lived Vayechi Yaakov, that talks about Yaakov's death and the funeral, and the same with the Yosef. So there are some elements that are directly from that parasha that affect the rules that we follow in Dinei Avelut. But my problem is, which I started with, that I looked at in the book we use of Rav Steinsaltz, and you can see there that the amount of pages that are dedicated to the question of Avelut, of funeral, all the rules of mourning, it's just as long as the rules of Shabbat. Now, in the Beit Midrash, we dedicated for Shabbat a few months and studying all the rules, and now the same amount of pages I need to cover in 1 hour. So how can it be that we made such a someone could say such a mistake to give so little place to a topic that is so long and complicated, and doing that, and I have to say there are reasons to this. We could do much deeper sessions on every much deeper sessions on every aspect of Avelut, of mourning. The thing is that Avelut is not part of our life in the same way as everything else. Yes, it's part of the life. It's part of the life circle. But just like we won't use a lot of time to study the rules and laws of Brit Milah. Brit Milah is something that you do once. Usually when you do it, you're not very aware of you doing it. You're 8 days old. So your parents maybe do it. Someone who will study to become a mohed, he will study longer all the rules of that. But it doesn't feel in our daily routine life. It doesn't feel so much. And it's the same with the Dinei Avelut. The rules of Avelut, they are things that happens to everyone. Like there's almost no one that never had to do some of the rules of Avelut, unless he passes away in a very early age and didn't have time to lose anyone close to him in the family. But these rules is something that you don't do in your daily life. So I remember even us in the family when I lost my older brother, and we sat and we had to study the rules of Avelut, preparing to the death, knowing that it's about to happen, and we have to learn the rules because we actually didn't know them. Even though I had my father was a rabbi, and I was a rabbi at the time. My brother was a rabbi, and we still needed to open the books and see what are the rules, because we never experienced it before in firsthand with ourselves. Not my father, not us. So we had to study it when it was relevant. So what we will do today is cover the basic rule, what is it we need to know about it? Not all the details of every aspect, but the more general direction. What aspects do we have in these rules? Now, I hope all of you studied the chapters about Avelut. If not, you can do it also after the shiur. It's not dependent on that. And of course, come in with questions. You don't have to wait until we finish. Come in with questions also during the shiur. Yes. So I'll start with to share a page about Avelut.
Can I ask one question right in the beginning? I was thinking this morning that how does it go if someone who is converting, like parents are not Jewish, and if one of the parents dies, how does it apply, like everything, to the non-Jewish parent who died?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. My plan was to attend it at some point. One of the very you will see through the document and through all the sources that many of the rules of velut and also funeral, many of the rules are traditions and not halacha. And there's a difference. Now, of course, minhag in Israel, minhag b'Israel dinu, that the tradition becomes a rule, but the traditions are so different, and also they leave more room to, I would say, flexibility. So in principle, for example, all the rules about what you're supposed to do towards your non-Jewish parent, or even someone who had a Jewish father, but converted, and then, as you know, when you convert, you're seen as the child of Abraham and Sarah. So the direct family relations in that aspect, it's as if they disappear. And I say as if because it's very crucial that it still behave the same way of kibud av va'em and all the other rules that apply. But I'd say in the what if we call it the beriyah hilchatit tzara, in like narrow halachic rules, you don't have to. So in a way, you can avoid some of the rules, but you can also choose them. So of course, when you come to say, let's say Kaddish, it won't make sense to say Kaddish after a non-Jewish parent, because the Kaddish has a specific goal that we will touch today too, but it won't be relevant to it. But behaving in the way that you're supposed to behave when you lost your father or your mother, it is relevant to talk about that, because it's about a matter of behavior, of how you are. So I would say you won't be obligated to follow, but you can be inspired by them, and you can choose from it. But from the narrow halachic answer, I would say that there are in that terms it's like you have new family relations when you convert, and then the rule doesn't apply 100%. It will still be relevant for many, and a lot of people agree that if you have a Jewish father, for example, many people say that you're allowed to be called up. For example, when we convert children, we continue to call the children as children of their parents, and not saying Ben Avraham. So that there is that connection that doesn't disappear halachically. It's from different reasons. So I hope it's a good enough answer, but it's supposed to be a vague answer, because it leaves room to flexibility.
Thank you.
Good. So I will share the document. Yeah. Yes. So I'm going to start with something that is connected to the attitude towards death. And here the word that many of us know when it comes to hearing about someone who passed away, and lots of people answer immediately Baruch Dayan Emet, or Baruch Dayan Haemet. This is blessed is the true judge. The judge of truth. And the source comes from Mishnah Masechet Brachot, chapter 9, where it says על הגשמים ועל הבשורות הטובות, אומר ברוך הטוב והמיטיב. One of the blessings that probably none of you have ever said is this blessing called Baruch Hatov HaMetiv, that when something very good happens, you're supposed to say Hatov HaMetiv. I won't go into the details of that rule. I can say that I also almost never in my life used it. I used it once, as far as I remember, when I got my corona vaccine. It was because it's good for you and it's beneficial for the whole society. So when you have something like that, you say Hatov HaMetiv. It's good with me and benefit the whole society. So there were quite a few rabbis who wrote you should say this bracha while you get the vaccination. But anyways, this is not our focus. But then the Mishnah continues and says, "Val shmuot raot," for bad tidings, for bad rumors. If you hear about a bad thing that happened, Omer Baruch Dayan Haemet. You say, blessed the true judge. And of course, when it says Baruch Dayan Haemet, it's a shortened version. So it's supposed to be Baruch Atah Hashem Eloheinu melech haolam Dayan Haemet. This is a full sentence. And this was supposed to be on every bad thing that happens. Like you're supposed to say it in the beginning on any bad rumor. You heard that I know there were some robbers came and stole your everything you have. You say Baruch Dayan Haemet. It's on bad tidings. I don't know the word, but bad rumors. Something bad that happened. You're supposed to immediately say as a reaction. Something bad happened. I will say Baruch Dayan Haemet. I have to bless God for the good thing in the same way I bless God for the bad thing. Both of them are in the same way. I'm supposed to bless God because I'm not supposed to go into the questioning God's position. Why does God do things? We say the blessing also on the bad things. Even though we see them as bad thing, it's not that we start to say, no, it's a good thing in disguise, like Joseph does, for example, in the last weeks we read. We say this is a bad thing, but we accept God's judgment. We don't question that. In general, the rabbis went to a direction because of the brachot is not something that you are. It's not from Deoraita; it's from the Rabbanan. And you know the difference, right? What the difference between Deoraita and the Rabbanan? You can help me. Anyone? Just come in because I don't see your hands.
So how do you say it? The Raita is something from the Tanakh and
from the Tanakh, from the Torah.
Torah, yeah, and the other one is from the rabbis.
Yeah, the Rabbanan of the rabbis, the writer of Oraita, of the Torah. Oraita is the word in Aramaic. So, and why is it important? It's important because there's a very big difference. Both of these categories were made by the rabbis. It's not some of the rule that are from the Oraita. If you open the Torah, you won't be able to read them directly. It's a category that the rabbis decided what is from the Oraita and what is from the Rabbanan through learning. There are rules of how do you define that. Sometimes there are discussions what is from the Torah and what is from the rabbis, but it's important because something that is from the Torah, if you're in doubt, then you don't do. The opposite, I'm sorry. If you're in doubt, then you have to do, if it's from the Torah. But if it's from the rabbis, then you don't. And the best example is the blessing for the food. If you don't remember, if you said the bracha before you eat something, you're like, did I say hamotzi or not? Then you don't say it again. But if you're in doubt of saying the bracha after eating, Birkat HaMazon, that you have to say after you eat bread. This is something that is from Deoraita. So the first one is from the Rabbanan. The last, the one after the meal, is from Deoraita. So if you're not sure, then you have to say it again. So that when so that's the biggest practical difference between the Rabbanan and Deoraita. And in general, brachot that you say before the on different things that are not only of eating, brachot are the Rabbanan. The idea of saying a blessing before something is from the Rabbanan, and that's why on things that you doubt if you have to or not, then you don't say a bracha. And one of the things is, what do you define as shmuot ra'ot, bad tidings, bad rumors that happen? What is it's vague. What is a bad rumor? And that's why slowly this bracha disappeared from the regular life, because people avoided saying it because they weren't sure what is considered a bad thing to say that or not. And it's there. I brought here. I couldn't find it in English, but from Aruch HaShulchan, he said he brings Met Aviv, his father that passed away. Mevarech Dayan Emet. Then you say, if your father died, you say the blessing of Dayan Emet, because Shal Kol HaMetim Shemitabel Aleim Chayav B'bracha Zo. Because every person who passed away, you're supposed to say this bracha. And of course, you have to, v'kol sheken al aviv. And so, of course, you have to say it on your father. And ואפילו על תלמיד חכם ואדם כשר, לכתחילה יש לברך דיין האמת. Even you're supposed to say this blessing also on someone who's, if you heard about a famous rabbi who passed away, or someone who was Adam Kasher, someone who is a proper person, you're supposed to say the bracha. The lo garam mishmuot torot, that of course when someone passed away, there's no doubt that that's a bad rumor, someone who passed away. There's no doubt. Ela shelo nagu levarech b'shem hamlachut. And this is an important thing, that you don't say the bracha with God's name. So you only say Baruch Dayan Haemet in the shorter version. When you say Baruch Dayan Haemet without saying Baruch Ata Hashem Eloheinu Melech Haolam, this is Shem v'Malchut with God's name. Then, so what happened since? The tradition is you don't say the bracha with God's name. You just say Baruch Dayan Haemet. You take the shorter version, and that way you don't say God's name in vain if it's not clear. And the tradition is you only say this bracha in one specific time, when you tear the clothes before the funeral. Then you, for someone who is directly one of the people who is obligated on tearing his clothes, only then you say the bracha. You don't say the bracha in any other time, even though there were reasons to say it in other time. You were supposed to say it when you heard, I know your parent died, and so you were supposed to say it then when you hear it. But the reality today that you only do it to the directly and the nearest family. And we will come to that too. What is the nearest family? And the rest of it, you can just say Baruch Dayan Haemet. But then you can say Baruch Dayan Haemet also not only on the people who died. Also, if you heard about a tragedy that happened, a terror attack, or I don't know, a natural disaster that happened, or things like that, then you will, and then you can have like the same attitude to say Baruch Dayan Haemet. It's hard for us to accept and to understand, but we still bless God also in this situation. Good. Who are the closest relations? So it starts, the sources are very vague. It comes from different places, but in Vayikra, there's a source that tells about the Kohanim. The Kohanim are not allowed to be near someone who passed away, near someone who has a tumat met, the impurity of the dead. So it says like that. Hashem said to Moshe, speak to the Kohanim, the sons of Aaron, and say to them, none shall defile himself for any dead person among his kin. And that is a rule that any of you who went to a Jewish funeral knows that if the Kohen comes to the funeral, Kohanim will stand outside and not go in under the same roof. And also, in principle, if they come near the grave, they won't go nearer than 2 meters because they have to be in distance, and it's a rule that Kohanim still use. Yes, Paula?
Yeah, he's my husband.
And if you are a Kohen and your parents are unfortunately died, what you should do?
Here, and this, so just wait for the next sentence. Except for the relatives that are closest to him: his mother, his father, his son, his daughter, and his brother. So it comes here with a list of the very closest relatives. The Talmud adds that when it says "L'she'ero hakarov elav," that except for the relative that are closest to him, that includes his husband, wife, and also a half brother and half wife. That's also included in these people. But all of these are the first relatives. So these are the relatives that you are obligated, even if you are Kohen, you're obligated to go to the funeral. If you are Kohen, to go to the grave and do all the ceremony. This is so only for them you're allowed to. But from here you can draw the first reply. This is a relative in first degree. So the rule of the relative of first degree, these are the people that you are obligated in Dinei Avelut. There are differences between parents and the rest of them, but these are the people that you are obligated to mourn and to do all to sit shiva and tear the clothes and all of these. These are the first relatives. Yes. Very, very simple. So I just run. I'll continue.
Can I talk?
Yes.
And if it's a close friend, for example, not really a relative, what are the rules? So
the rules of if you are Kohen, then you are not allowed to go to the funeral. For example, usually what do you have in Batei Kvarot? We have it also in our Beit Kvarot, in Beit Kvarot, Bet Olam, the cemetery, have the different name, Bet Almin, Bet Olam. It's that you have a microphone outside. I'm sorry, the microphone it's at the speaker. The speaker outside, so the Kohanim stands in a distance, and they can hear what's happening within the kapella, like the place where you hold the speeches and such. And then they're allowed to go to follow the Havaya. You will see that also when you go to a cemetery in Israel, you will see that where you walk is very broad to let the Kohanim be able to walk there without being too close to the graves. So that's like the specific way, and many times there's an area for the Kohanim that they can be able to go directly to their own relatives' grave, and the rest they have to be from distance. In general, we have to remember that traditionally, the Jewish tradition says that you should take graves and put them outside of the city. This is not something that you're supposed to have part of life. All the cemeteries are supposed to be outside of the city, and it's a matter of principle that it's not a necessity to go to be close. That your dead friend is not in the grave. It's only his bones, right? It's not the soul. It's not him. It's I don't know how to say it in a nice way, but it's the leftovers of the person that are now we have an obligation to take care of the dead. This is something I didn't bring it, but the first rule of why we should do it quicker comes from the place in the Torah in the book of Dvarim that says I don't remember I think it's 22 that if you execute a person and hang him on the tree, then you're not allowed to leave the body overnight. So if you hang him in the evening, is the latest time that you should take the body off, which is exactly opposite than what everyone else did, right? Part of the goal when you hang someone is to let everyone see and be afraid, right? Learn from this. Look at this person who's hanged and see that this can happen to you if you do something bad or thing like that. And the Torah already immediately, the Torah says in very early time, you're not allowed to do it. It's disrespect for the body. The person is already dead. You're not allowed to, and the body is sacred and sacred and unsacred at the same time, right? It's tameh. It's something that is unpure, and you need to, out of respect to the body that God gave, need to bury it as soon as possible. So this is something that we learn from there. But again, it's not the person. So going to the grave is more for us, but not necessarily for the respect. So if you attend, if you have a at the Kohen, you don't go to good friends. You go to the funeral. You can visit in the shiva, visit the family, all of that. That you can do, but you can't. But you can't go near the grave itself. Yes. So now let's come near the. I'm trying to go Slavic, like all the aspects that you have from the start to the. So one was the bad rumor. And the second was who is it you're supposed to. One thing that I didn't bring here, the old aspect of vidui, what you say before you die. All of us know that you're supposed to end your life with Shema Yisrael, Hashem Eloheinu Hashem Echad. But before that, if you can in some way, you're supposed to say vidui. Vidui is what's the word in? Can anyone help me here? Vidui, when you declare all the bad things you did to God, and you ask for sorry. We do the thing we do when we Yom Kippur and also. What, Sophie?
We ask for forgiveness, or like.
Yeah, but but it has like a name.
The condolences.
No.
Confession.
Well, confession.
Yeah, confession. Yes, thank you. Exactly. It's the same word as the Catholics and go to confession, but we just don't need a rabbi to it. So don't come to me with your confessions. You can go directly to the source and confess to God. And the confession is not a confession that you're supposed to come and say, "This is a bad thing I did." It's a ritual. Like you have a specific way of saying it. It's not I remember I did this and this bad for someone, or I did this and I ate something wrong. It's not a confession that is specific. It's a general confession of just like we do in Yom Kippur, Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, Dibarnu, Dofi, and so on. And in principle, if you can, you're supposed to say the whole long confession, also with the Al-Chet. With Al-Chet, the text there, it's a text we say 7 times during Yom Kippur. And if a dying person can, he's supposed to say it before he died. I know my father, for example, helped my brother to say it when he lied sick at the hospital. So we have that aspect before. There are some traditions of psalms and things to say just when we are next to someone who is about to pass away. We're supposed to be next to this person and not leave him alone. But all these things I would say, just as I started with, don't try to remember them. Don't memorize them now. Ask a rabbi before it's relevant. Like if you're in a situation where it's relevant, call and ask, is there something we can say when our beloved is about to pass away? Is there a tradition? And then, because again, there are too many details and there's no chance to remember it now, because you write it down now in a shiur and remember that in 5 years, 10 years or more, hopefully. So do that at that time. Yes. So this is the one aspect also of the person himself who's is about to die, is supposed to say a confession, and you talk about this confession because the dying itself is part of the redemption of like now we mitati kapara. My death would be a kapara atonement to the soul. You have that saying in others. Okay, but now we'll go back to the rules of the mourners. Someone who misha meto mutar lefanav patur mikrat shema. Now, if you're about to you had someone of the closest who passed away, then you are in a specific period. It's called aninut. Aninut is a very deep sore, and in that time you are exempt. One who's the seated relative is laid out unburied before him, is exempt from the recitation of Shema, from Amidah prayer, and from Tefillin, as well as all positive mitzvot mentioned in the Torah. Kol mitzvot aseh. You're not allowed to do something that is forbidden, but you're not supposed to do mitzvot that are a thing that you have to do. You're not supposed not to pray, not to put tefillin, because you're focused on that. There's a big discussion among rabbis. But are you allowed to, or is it just you are exempt? Because usually when you're not when you exempt, it mean you don't have to, but maybe you can. And there's a big discussion about it. But the tradition is when you are directly in this situation of aninut, then you don't. Then you're exempt, and you're not supposed to do it. But this applies, and this is very relevant to talk here. This applies in I would say in Israel, not because of the difference between Israel and other places. It applies because most funerals for example, the Nordic countries, they don't happen the same day. It's I don't remember one funeral since I came to Denmark 10 years ago that happened at the same day of the person who died. I don't know if it's different in Sweden and Norway, but I assume not. And then it means that this status that you are onen is not the same, because onen is because you're so focused on bringing your loved one to a funeral, and you're supposed to do that. It's a mitzvah that you're supposed to be focused on all the time. But if you have the funeral in 2 days, then you're not occupied only in preparing the funeral. It doesn't demand so many preparation. That's why this status is relevant in Israel, in places where you bury immediately the same day as someone passed away, and it's not relevant in Denmark. So maybe in the first hours when you calling the billman, the rabbi, and find out, then you are exempt for the mitzvot. But right after, when you finish that, then you're not in the same. You're still officially under this onenut, this period that is like a vague time, because avelut, the mourning, only starts after the funeral. But you still you can't continue to say, no, I'm not putting tefillin because I'm onen, even though my funeral is in 2 days. That you don't do. So it's so it's more relevant, this rule, relevant in places where you keep that rule to bury immediately. Good. It's short. It's also quite simple. So I'll continue. Now when you come to the funeral itself, there are different aspects that come. You have the aspect of Tahara. I didn't bring the sources here. It's actually one of the weirdest. I had a shiur here for all the Cheva Kadisha. Everyone knows what Cheva Kadisha is. It's actually very important to know that, because this is, could be relevant for you. Cheva Kadisha. I asked me. I can okay. I can see that I have different questions in the chat. I wasn't aware before. So I said the word avelut mean mourning. As it says, Cecilia, if someone is sick or unconscious, you say the Shema for them, the vidui as much as they can, and also the vidui you would say the short version next to them, hoping that they can be aware in some way. And I would say ask a rabbi what to do if you're in that situation, which text to say, and so on. Thank you. So please, instead of writing in the chat because they won't see it, just speak up or raise your hand, and then I'll see that you raise your hand, because it tells me that you do that. The Cheva Kadisha is the people who take care of the funeral. In every Jewish community has a Cheva Kadisha. The word is Cheva is like a it's like a chavura, like a foyini. It's like a group of people but it's like the holy group. And now the holy group, because they're doing Chesed Shelemet, they're doing the one of the most holy things and one of the greatest charities you can do as a Jew, as a person, is doing a good deed for the people who passed away. And you say this is Chesed Shelemet. This is the truth, the true Chesed, the true grace. I'm not sure which word you used instead of chesed, but chesed is doing something extraordinary for others. Now, and the one you do to someone who's dead is the truth one, because he will never pay you back, and he doesn't know you did it. So you do it. It's one direction. You won't get anything in return. It goes only one direction. So the Cheva Kadisha that you have everywhere in the world, every Jewish community has. It's people usually voluntarily who take care of the body, of preparing the body, to do tahara, which is a you could say it's a word that it contradicts itself, right? Because how can you do tahara to something that is tameh? The body itself is impure. How can you pure it? The body is impure. The dead person, he's impure. So you can't pure it from being dead. So actually the word Tara came very, very, very late to this. You won't find the Tara not in the Mishnah, not in Talmud, not in the rabbi. It comes, I think, only for 300-400 years ago. It started to use the word Tara, like as a purifying. But what they did is the ritual bathing of the body. They don't put it in they don't put it in mikveh. Don't worry. It's they use water and pour it on the body after. Let's see. So this happened in this is something that the relevant, because I think many of you can also help with this. There's always need for volunteers to Cheva Kadisha. It's something that you can all do, and they need volunteers. And this is really, I think, for me, and it's something amazing that I also participated quite a few times. It's so hard for us in the modern times connect to being next to a dead body. We're not used to it, and like in touching it, and it's really many of us will find it very very hard. I think it's one of the, I won't say one of the beautiful things, but it's I think very very strong experience to understand death in a way that we're so far away from. We don't have a lot of dead animals around us all the time. We don't do we don't slaughter animals to eat them because someone does it for us long and far away. We don't have death around us in the same way that in the more natural way that you would have seen if we lived in nature. And being aware of this existence, I think it's important, and like not be afraid of that. See the reality of the body. It's frightens us, but I really believe it's an important thing, important experience to give place to death, and also in a way not be so afraid of it. In the same way, for me, I found it comforting, not because it's pleasant, not that it's fun, but there's something comforting about acting with the dead in this matter, in this way. So here, yes. Okay, so now when we come to the rule of the funeral, this is basically the only rule that is very critical. All the other rules are much more traditions. Almost all the other rules that are connected to a funeral, but the rule of kri'ah, of tearing the clothes, the garments, this is a rule that comes from, it's a mitzvah that you're supposed to do. This is a halacha. This is not only a tradition. And here I brought the source from the Talmud, but you already see in the Bible many places that people tear their clothes, and almost every time they do that, it's connected to someone who passed away. So tearing your clothes, it's very much. We have, for example, Jacob, when Yaakov hears that Yosef died, he heard wrong, but this is the hearing he said. Then he tears his garments, and you have more than 30, 40 places in the Bible where people tear their garments. Most of the places it's connected to family members who passed away. And then the Talmud comes and says, "Al kol hametim kulan koreh tefach." With regard to all deceased relatives, one rents his garments the length of a handbreadth. So tefach is like this, about 10 centimeters. And that's sufficient. In the case of his father or mother, he must rend his garment until he revealed his heart. So you can see a difference between some of the relatives and your parents. And that's why, for example, when we tear today, if it's on a brother or children or husband and wife, then you tear in the right side of the clothes, right? The right side of the body. And if it's parent, you tear the left side, because you have to reveal the heart. When you do it to the parents, you cut through all the layers. So if you have a jacket, a shirt, like everything you have on, you cut through all the layers. You come to the body itself. While if it's On another relative, then you only need the shirt, so you don't need to cut through all the layers, and you don't have to do it as deep as to a parent. Yes, simple, right? Questions? So this is the rule. Today you do it only to family members. You don't do it on others. And also there are rules here that that you are allowed to fix it only the other clothes, not the one for the parent, but the other you're allowed to fix after 30 days, after the shloshim. Then you're allowed to fix your clothes. Today we have so much cheap clothes. Think that at that time, in the Talmud time, tearing your garments is tearing something that is very expensive. You have only two, maybe if you're, but sometimes you only have one. So tearing your garments is a very serious, a very big thing. Today, buying very easy to buy a cheap shirt that we wouldn't care and just throw it away afterwards. So this tearing is connected to tearing things you own. It's quite a big thing. But we also have rule that you're not allowed to. There's a rule that says bal tashchit. So you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to ruin things in the world. So, and the same with the clothes. So you're not allowed to. So you don't tear too much on others. Only on your parents that is you're directly obligated. And they come here also with an example. And David took hold of his clothes and rent them. And King David did this, of course, when he heard his son died. Yes. And now I bring yes, Arad. Arad? Do you want to say something? Yanai? Yanai? Arad or Yanai? What's their name? So.
This is Esther. I have a question about
Esther.
the tearing of the garment for a woman, because I have seen it like in some movie that the woman was having something under so that it cannot be, so that everybody can see the skin,
Yes,
right?
of course. Yeah, that's we. It's not that we will reveal the woman's breast because of the rule of Kriya. So there's an aspect of a modesty too in there. And we have also the tradition that it's women who do the Kriya for women and men do for men. That we don't. It's very sensitive to go and cut. And what you do usually is that you cut with a knife or with scissors, and then the person, like someone does it for you, someone from the Cheva Kadisha, the rabbi, or someone who's there, and then you continue and cut yourself because you are obligated to do the kriya. So usually they start and you continue because you have to do the kriya yourself. And as I said before, this is also the time where you say the bracha dayan emet.
אוקיי, עכשיו אני יכול לדבר.
כן.
המיקרופון היה נעול. על ידי הצ'אט המיקרופון היה נעול. The question is, the mention in the Torah also about dirt, afar.
Yes.
Why they don't do it today as one of the custom?
And because we don't. I can't answer. As I said, so many of the traditions here are traditions that evolved. So you can put a fire on your head, like it's not forbidden to put the dirt on the head. I remember seeing rabbis do it in special manners, but it's not. It didn't come into part of. For example, here in David, it says and it doesn't say that put dirt on himself. So it wasn't so clear doing all of them. So it's not an obligation. It's something that you can do, but it's not. But it didn't stick. That part of doing it that way. Yeah. Yes. And now I want to bring another aspect that I think is very relevant in as we read yesterday in the Torah. Yaakov, Israel, calls his son, Yosef, and asks him to bury him with his fathers, right, in the Merat HaMachpelah. So we read it yesterday, and of course they did it. They did it as it says, and from here you can learn that there is this special aspect of being buried in Israel. Because Yaakov doesn't only say, I wish to be buried with my parents. He says, don't bury me in Egypt. Yes, here. He says, don't bury me in Egypt. And then he asks him to bury him with his father. So it's a very, very important rule that through to the tradition, people asked to be buried in Israel, even though they lived abroad. There are still people who do that. The bones are brought to Israel after, and there's a special thing about this. But even if you're not buried in Israel, every Jew in the world that is buried buried in the earth of Israel, B'admat Eretz Israel. And the reason is that the tradition outside of Israel is being buried in a coffin. In Israel, if you ever go to a funeral or see one now, you will see that people are buried without a coffin. It's a shock. I remember I was together with family that it was the first time I was in Israel, and in my community, a family brought the father from the States to bury him, and they bought a very fancy coffin. And when it came, the Chevra Kadisha came, opened it, and took him out, and they were shocked completely. Wow, what are you doing? And people are in shock when you stand in the funeral in Israel. You don't see the body. The body is covered with a talit or something else, but the body either you can see everyone can see the shape of the body, and it's like what? It's the people from abroad are completely in shock. You bury directly in the ground, in the Adama. In Israel, abroad, what we do is within the coffin, you put some dust, some earth from Israel, and in that sense, every Jew is buried who is buried in Admat Eretz Israel, the dust, the earth of Eretz Israel. So it's just an aspect I want to bring. And here comes a very the next part that is important. What is happening after? So we all know the word Shiva, right? The 7 days after the funeral. Originally here, there were different aspects, but I think it's very important to read it in this way that the Talmud brings. Weep not for the dead, neither bemoan him. Al tivku lamet ve'al tanudu lo. Why? It's quite how can the Jeremiah say that? The reason Jeremiah talks about something else. But what should we understand from him? Weep not for the dead in excessive, yoter midai, and neither bemoan him more than the appropriate measure. So the Talmud here underlines you're not supposed to cry too much after a dead person. You're not supposed to mourn too much. Some will say that the reasoning for that is because we can read it here that it's it's a bad news, but it's not a catastrophe. Someone who dies is not a catastrophe. It's part of life, and we're not allowed to do it to something that is bigger than what it is. It's dangerous. It's forbidden to give too much place to mourning. It should have place, but not too much. And this is this is the reasoning behind that you have different phases of mourning in Judaism. So here comes the Talmud and says, what do you have? What is the right amount? 3 days for weeping. The first 3 days are the most important part of the Shiva. For example, if someone who will lose a lot of money if he won't work for 7 days, then the rabbi will say, okay, maybe if you can only 3 days not to work and the 4th day, but the first 3 days are the most important. This is the reasoning. But within the Shiva, if you can, you're supposed to try the whole Shiva. This is what most of people do. In Israel, it's you get vacation for like 7 days of Shiva every in the workplace. It's obligated to the workplace to give everyone a Shiva. You don't have that in Denmark. I remember I met people here who said that they think it's a very good idea to implement Shiva because it's so healthy for the family to have this Shiva tradition, to give it place, but also to stop it, just like we read it here. So 3 days for weeping and 7 for eulogizing, the hesped, 30 legihutz v'tisporet, and 30 for ironing and for cutting hair, for the getting a haircut or shaving and such. So you have here different periods. You have 3 days, you have 7 days, you have 30. Mikan va'elach, and here comes from this point forward, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed He, said, do not be more merciful with the deceited than I am. You shouldn't think that you are more, that your feelings towards this, your mercy is bigger than I have to the person who passed away. So you have to stop when it's more than 30, and that is the rule to most avelim except one. So regular avelut you do until 30 days. The sum of the rules, except for parents. Because like we saw before, also with the tearing, that the parents, there's some, because of the kibud avaim, you have an extra, you have to show an extra aspect. So the difference between a brother or children and parents. When it's your parents, then it continues for a year. The last part, which is smaller, it means the part of cutting the hair is longer, of not going to a haircut, and the part of not going to happy simchas, to weddings and different things that continues a year. There are special exemptions. So if you come to a situation that's needed, contact the rabbi to find out what can you do, because you shouldn't cancel a wedding because of avelut, because the family lost someone. All of these rules, now we won't go to the details of the Shiva, of what happened exactly in each one of them. There are a list of rules, what you're supposed to do in the Shiva. It's all written very simply in the book, so just go back to the book and read them. And then you have like the different aspects in the other times. Yes, wow, I didn't think I'll come through the whole thing, but again, so the Avelut rules, I think we can learn from the whole session today. They are quite simple, so it's easy to read. When you do the reading of it, you have manuals and guides. Other than that, there's special situation. How do you count Shiva? What do you do if a holiday comes in? There's many different rules. So if the situation comes, contact the rabbi for guidance. Okay, this is one of the roles of the rabbi when you're in that situation. So it's very important that you Yeah, that you do that you know in general the term that exists, what is it we're supposed to look at, and seek guidance when it comes to the reality, how to do it, all the details. But as I said, read again the chapter, and you can see that the information is very simple. What about if a woman has miscarriage? Miscarriage, I will say even. Well, now I'm going to. We're opening a very bad. Miscarriage is not seen in any ways as a death. A fetus is part of the woman, 100%. If I go to rules, I want to see it too. If, for example, we'll go to the rules of shechting, of slaughtering. If you slaughter a cow that is slaughtered kosher-wise, a cow that was pregnant, and you take out the, how do you call that baby cow? Calf. I don't know how we call it, the fetus. But if you take it out and it's alive, it is seen as if it's slaughtered. So it's a living, slaughtered animal, because it was part of the mother while he was slaughtered. Now I don't use it as practically, but it gives the principle that a fetus is part of the mother 100% until the last second. And if there's a miscarriage, there are no rules of avelut. And I would say even more, the rules of avelut, they don't apply until 30 days after birth. Now, you're allowed to do the avelut. You're allowed to do the rule if you need it, but in principle, even 30 days after the birth, because the baby didn't show that it's living, like that it's managed to have a full, like lives on its own, then it's not the rules of avelut don't apply. So it's even longer than a question of a miscarriage, even after birth. If the baby couldn't stay alive the first 30 days, then the rules of avelut don't apply. But again, just like I said about a convert, that the rules don't apply doesn't mean you're not allowed to do it. If you feel the need to mourn and to cry, then you're allowed to, but you have to be careful with not too much. We know how. I don't know if the halacha did it to help women or ignored women's feeling. I had a big. I remember I studied it together with a group of rabbis, female and male, who studied the rules, and there was a huge discussion. Is it something that is good and protective? Does it help to do it better, or is it just because we didn't understand women? And so the women rabbi had discussions among them if this is something that was a manly ignorance or something that is good psychologically. So I don't want to go into what is right or wrong here, because I never tried to give birth, and I never tried to be a woman, not today, not 500 years ago or 300 years ago when these rules were evolved and created. So I don't want to come and be clever to say this is a genius thing or not. So I'll let you think about it. But the rules, as I said, for fetus, for miscarriage, there's no aspects of avelut there. Any other questions? Because we're out of time. We're supposed to finish. Yes. So you have to go, and we all have to go. So I'll wish you all a happy New Year, and let's hope that. It's not because we believe 2024 has a religious meaning, but we do need a better 2024 than 2023. So let's hope.
Thank you so much.
And be careful from the fireworks tonight.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
תודה, יואב.
תודה רבה.